Hello YouTubers. In this video we're going to be raising back up the Saab 9.3 to its original height. This is the picture of the car just before I purchased it from the previous owner. And as you can see, it's been dropped 2 inches from standard height. Now normally that wouldn't bother me. The car actually sits and looks good at this level, but it is bouncy, jarring, everything knocking under the car, rattling. It just feels like the car is falling apart and into pieces throughout the front and the back. So something is wrong with this setup. Something is wrong with this, the way this was installed, or it's the wrong piece of equipment. I don't know. But either way, the goal of this video is to raise it back up to its stock height with its stock springs that came with the car. So let's jump into it. So these are the parts that are on the car. And the originals are right here. So let's get, I guess we'll start with the front and work our way to the back. So here are the parts we have for our spring reconversion. I have bump stops and bellows. Part number will be in the description below, but there's what they are. And then I bought new bearings and strut mounts. So over that real quick. Bump stops and bellows should be self-explanatory. This is the top mounting plate and the bearing. So system twists on this. See it move? So that's going to go there, and it's going to make it so that it spins freely. So that's what that is. So those are our parts. Let's get them on the car. So let's get the wheel off. The car's up in the air, and get these lug nuts out. So we want to put a jack stand under it. Put it right here on the cross members nearest the steering suspension area, so it's extra enforced right there, because we're going to need the jack that we have holding the car up to support the lower A-arm, because we're going to need to take pressure off these bolts when we get to them. So we're going to take these bolts here out, and these are 18mm socket. This side here is odd, so we're going to put a wrench into that if we need to help hold it in place so that it doesn't spin with the rotation of this nut. Here is to disconnect this. It plugs in right here. My camera's struggling to reach it. Plugs in like that. All I do is push here, pull out, and that gives us the room we need for this part. And I've already taken this bolt here out. We're going to now take this bolt out after we get this out of our way. So I slid this out of the housing and went here. So I just pulled it out. That frees it up on both sides. So now let's get this plate here off. You should just slide out with a pair of pliers. That piece is out. We should be able to slide this out and out of our way so that we have better room to our bolt. So now we want to get the sway bar end link out. That's an 18 on the outside and a 17 on the inside. You're going to need that, otherwise it'll just keep spinning. So I went ahead and took out the bottom one as well for the sway bar end link. That way I ordered new parts, so when they arrive we'll just put in the new ones. So the next thing I'm going to do is support the suspension with the jack, since the jack stand is there, and relieve the pressure on these bolts here. So I tried to unscrew this, but it's only going to so far. I guess these threads just won't back it all the way back out that way. So I'm going to put the nut back on it, as far on it as I can, so that I can equalize the load, and then I'm going to put some persuasion on it to push the nut or push the bolt back. So let's do that. So I just tap it until the bolt comes back out. And then we will pull it, then we will pull it out the rest of the way. And then we got the next one to do. Now, I think the thing to do is to pull the bolts out. Bolt is out. Suspension is free from the strut. I'm going to lower the jack. I should probably hold my hand over here so I can't record. So I ended up putting the jack back under it because it wants to fall too far forward with one hand. So right now it's out of its place. Let's grab the strut and get it out. Okay, to take these bolts out, we're going to do them one at a, do two of them. We'll loosen all three of them. Let's remove two. We're going to leave one in until we are ready to pull out the unit itself. So it takes a 13 millimeter. And this bolt out. This bolt here out. And note one thing. This is not a perfect triangle. This strut can only go back in one direction. So you can't mess it. You probably could, but you shouldn't be able to mess it up. So I'm going to undo this and hold my hand on that and grab it out while undoing the screw. You know the drama I'm about to go through. So I've got it. So I want to take a moment here to explain the spring compressor. I did this part of the video and not thinking that maybe you don't know how this works, but essentially I bought a cheap spring compressor. You could probably pick it up anywhere, Harbor Freight. And essentially you just find 2 points on the spring. Anywhere, they'll cup right in there, no problem. They'll want to go on there and seat themselves onto the spring. That's what it wants to do. And then all I do is tighten it to the point where it becomes loose on the top cap. And you'll be able to tell that it is loose on the top cap. And the top cap is that top bolt that you're about to see. And so you just keep tightening the spring clamps, tightening the spring down, and then you'll get to that top bolt, no problem, and it'll be nice and loose. What you don't want is for that that spring to be under pressure, and when you take off that top bolt, it shoots across the room along with the spring. So you're gonna make sure you're careful, very, very careful, tighten it down, check your work, make sure that everything is how is it supposed to be, and that bolt, the top bolt, will come off without issue. Put up here on my vise, not in my vise, and this is going to be as best I can do it to get them off. So let me tighten these down and then we'll undo the last bolt and get this stuff out. This top bolt is a 20 millimeter. So the system is out. Like I said, I've got the spring clamps on, no problem. When I went to get the top piece off, goes like this. I bought replacement parts, as you know, and I'm going to put back in the new parts. So anyway, it goes like this, sat right here. Now, when I went to go get the bolt off, all I did was put the socket on top of it, which is a 21, and then I put the Allen key in the middle of it, and I used a pair of vice grips and clamped down on the socket and undid the screw. That's how I did. There are the spring height differences. This is probably 1.5 inches or 2-inch drop. We're gonna put it back. Okay, so the springs are back on. They're still snug onto the spring compressor. And I've already started the top bolt and got it locked into place. Things to note. If you look here, the original boot, I had bought new boots, bellows, whatever. Don't buy this part. I still needed the bump stop, and that's in here. But the boot on that one doesn't have a provision for a rubber mount that goes around the spring. So I'm reusing the existing boot for that purpose. And then what you see here is that piece here and that'll make it spin around. So next thing to make sure of is don't get this out of alignment. This thing needs to sit right there. That's the end of it. That's where it goes. Now I am going to undo the spring compressor, and then I'll finish tightening up that top. Yeah, I've gone ahead and put in the strut. I could not have recorded that one-handed. I brought the strut in from this side, carried it out through there, and the first thing I did was align my holes up here and put those in. So the screws are in, just pretty much hand tight. And then this was out of alignment. This was not facing this direction, so I just twisted it to where it needed to be so that it could line up here. And so now all I've done is put on my bracket, and I'm ready for my bolts. I've already hooked this line up to it. I guess I could go ahead and hook up my brake sensor. Guess that's in. Anyway, let's tighten up this bolt, and we'll come. So now I'm going to put my 15 millimeter on this side and start tightening down my bolts. I do have a little bit of the jack holding it into place so that the bolts came in nice and easy, and we'll align these once we're done tightening the bolts. So first, let's tighten the bolts. As I mentioned at the outset, I was going to replace these tie-in rod sway bar end links, and I'm not going to be able to because the other replacements aren't here, and I want to keep moving. So we're going to put these back, and eventually I will bolt the other ones to it. So after that, this side is done. So I've already jacked the front up. I've already done the front. So I've jacked the rear up, sorry, because you don't need to see that. And this is an E18 Torx and an 18 millimeter on this side. Maybe it's a 17, I've just got it 18. So what we're gonna do is take this Torx bolt out. We're going to use our jack. We're going to relieve the pressure here. I've got the car sitting on a jack stand there, and all is good. And I'm getting ready to put the jack underneath this to relieve the pressure so that I can drop that slowly. This doesn't look complicated, no rocket science here. At least I hope not. So let's get this down. Okay, so the arm is down. I did have to persuade it with the hammer just a little bit, but came right down. Spring is loose. I'm just going to pull it out and put in the new one, or put in the old one. So let me do that. So one thing to note, this part here is P12778093. If you have an all-wheel drive, that is the spring that came on it. This was wrapped around it. It is way different than all the other videos out there showing you rear replacement springs. The others are big fat springs that look similar to the front. This is what it says. If you look it up online on Saab parts, it is a rear XWD all-wheel drive Saab spring, but it is completely different in shape or circumference. So anyway, I've got the jack underneath it. I've got my bolt ready to go back in, just about perfect, but not quite. So I'm going to put my bolt back in, and we'll call this side done. So normally I would have put a video together of the car, but I forgot, didn't think nothing about it. It got to be night and too late. So here's the car, all nice and done. Everything sitting how it's supposed to be, back to original height. Anyway, YouTubers, if you like the video, like the video.